Well, let's get right into it. I'll just introduce you. I'm on today we're doing the podcast with Bryan Williams, and he is just somebody who the divine presence, God brought us together to talk and to, me to help out as much as possible. And just, I feel like you're an up and coming coach, you're an up and coming lighthouse, and you're going to be doing a lot of great things. And you're on a specific part of your journey, wherever that's at. And you recently went through, one of the I don't want to speak for you. One of the biggest, I don't know if it's one of the biggest challenges of your life. You let us know, but it's one of a pivotal one. And it's come something kind of maybe, and we're going to get into it, maybe came out of left field for you. But if you can just walk us through the morning of, like, you woke up that day, what day of the week was it?
It was a Tuesday,
Okay.
and what's interesting about like this whole situation, this whole accident I went through was like it was a Tuesday. I'll tell you, like a regular Tuesday, I got myself ready, got my son ready. I'm usually taking care of him in the morning, and I don't work until like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm preparing, I'm learning, I'm studying after I take care of him, learning how to help people, doing research, trying to develop, myself as a coach and develop programs for people to help like deliver them and help them find their purpose and find the things that are like, important to them, you know? And what I was like finding is like it was just like, okay, just continue to keep doing the work, continue to keep pursuing. And it got around, the evening. I was cooking dinner and just preparing myself for the night. During like I was like cleaning overnights while I would coach during the day, and then at night I would clean. I would clean buildings. This was just to help, maintain my house,
Yeah.
bills and stuff like that. I'm just trying to, take care of this while I am developing myself as a coach and building my business. And I usually use that time to meditate, learn something new, like listen to a book, to just grow my mind. So I was already preparing to do that, and I went to my cleaning building that I do. Uh, Finished up, had a good session of learning about like how you know there's you can be delivered from your pain and your problems, but it just takes you taking time to heal yourself. And it's very interesting. I was learning about this before I went through this.
Was this a
So
podcast you were listening to?
it was a book. It was called The Power and Purpose, by Miles Monroe.
Was it a
And
book,
hmm?
like a audiobook?
Yeah, it was an audio book. I would go to Audible. I would get like a free credit every month, and I would go ahead and just take it and get like a self help book.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I'm, like I said, expanding my knowledge and seeing what other tools are out there to help people. And I was listening to that book, and that book was very powerful on really explaining uh like there's purpose in everything. Like everything has a reason, and a lot of things that are happening in your life are happening for a reason to like train you. So I was listening to that, um and I had a good night. It was I had to go get but while I was working, my responsibility was to go get a snack for my son. Like go to the grocery store and get a snack for him. He has allergies, so I just can't get anything. Like he's allergic to dairy and soy,
Okay.
so I have to get like a specific cracker or specific snack item. So I was like, it was late. It was probably because I usually get done my job around like 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning or
Okay.
2. So it's usually late. So grocery stores are closed. After the pandemic, nothing's open over 24 hours anymore. It's like
Mm.
11 o'clock, shuts down. But I knew the Quick Trip would be open, and they have a cookie you can get. So I was thinking like,
What
man,
time for tonight? What time for tonight? This morning. What time was it now when you left?
what time was it when I left for my job, my work?
Yeah, yeah.
What was the evening? It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I
Okay.
so I spent most of my day, from like 10 o'clock in the morning to like 2 or 3, I'm studying. Like
Okay.
I'm developing myself. I'm uh working on my coaching. You know what I'm saying? Learning, like I said, reading books, learning
Yeah.
as much as possible. And then I'm handling chores and just regular day stuff, cooking, cleaning the house, taking care of it. My wife is out working,
Yeah.
and
And
by the time I
Brian,
get home,
the
huh?
the accident happened on the way to work or the way back from work?
It happened on the way back from work.
Okay, so
So
you
it's
left work at what time in the morning?
well, I left work in the evening. So during
Evening.
the yeah, so like my whole day, like I was just saying, from the start of my day, it was like a regular day to me. Like
Got
nothing was like just out of the normal. You know what I'm saying? So, but the accident happened at like 1 o'clock at night. So the reason why I was even out is to get that snack. Because usually I just go straight home after I get done with cleaning. All right. So I was saying, I was talking to my wife like on the way to the gas station, like, hey, it's late. I'm gonna come home, and then she's like, well, did you get a snack? And I was like, nah, I forgot. So I was
it.
like, let me have the integrity. Let me go ahead and go get get the snack for my son, so it won't be a pain in the morning to get. Um, and then on the way back, I'm listening to a message, somebody giving a message about how, life coaching and just counseling and just uh, keeping God close has really helped them change their life. I try to like meditate on these things positively to, keep reminding me and keep motivating me to keep doing what I'm doing. And it's 1 o'clock at night. I'm going down. I'm like 6 minutes away from my house. All right, so I'm very close to home. And I'm going about 50, down the street, and then all of a sudden I see a car coming out of my right peripheral, and
Is that
and
like
I'm thinking,
a four-way stop? Yeah,
yeah, it's like a four-way stop. It's like an intersection,
and it's
and
like a lights, right? Like a
yeah,
red light, a yellow light. Okay, and you got a green light.
I got the green light, but I see there's a red light, so I'm like, this guy, he has to be slowing down. I see him coming down the hill because you can see about a mile and a half ahead, you
Mm,
know, down the street. Like you can see if there's a person coming. And it's late at night. So I'm thinking, there's no reason for, somebody to be like, you know, doing anything besides following the rules of the road. And
yeah.
there's cops that go down that road all the time too. Like I
Mm.
see one every night. Um, so just in my mind, I'm like, oh, he's gonna slow down, you know? But I go, and then I'm getting close to the intersection, and then I hear his engine roar up.
And you're
I hear,
you're going about 50.
yeah, I'm going about 50, so I'm going fast. I'm not like, Sunday driving. I'm going fast, but then I see out my peripheral, and then I hear,
The
and I
engine.
hear his engine like revving up, and then all of a sudden he crashes into me. Like it's kind of like in the movies where you kind of like you see like a flash. Like
Yeah.
I saw his headlights beaming right into my car, and then all of a sudden, feel the impact. I'm sliding and I'm moving, and then of course, I hit the curve, and
So your car was on like, was it I'm trying to think, is it 2 lane?
yes, it's a 2-lane street, so it's
And
two
you got
lane.
over to the other lane to the curb.
Yeah, I'm all the way up to the over in this corner, so I'm on the other side of the road, all the way to the corner, and the other guy has hit the wall. There's like a concrete wall at that corner, and he's at the wall.
So hit you and then hit the wall.
Yeah, he hit me. He ran basically through the front of my car. Um,
Whoa.
he hit the wall. So it was a crazy sight. You know, um, and the first thing when I like just came to my senses, and
You knocked out or no?
I think it was a moment of like just my eyes closed, or just I wasn't like out for a long time. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But I was just I had my eyes closed, and then I like opened them, and just to see like the after effect of the impact. I wanted to say it sounded like how you close a car door hard. and you hear
Yep.
like the slam sound. It sounded like that, but like just 20 times like louder, you know. And that was the sound of the impact. So I felt all of that, and looking, and then of course I go to check my body. All right, so of course I feel like just the pain and the shock wave through my body, and I'm looking, just checking my
But
body.
you got adrenaline going too, right? Like
Yeah,
it's starting. Yep.
it's already starting because I'm in fight mode. You know, my body. I have a pretty like. Uh, well, I'm just. It's already pumping in me because I'm like, I want to live. I want to survive. Because the first thought is like, I can't die. You know,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my son,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking about my family. You know, after I get hit. So that's my first thought. And even then, I'm praying to God, like, oh God, I gotta be here. Like I gotta be here for my family and my son. So I go to check my body, and I'm looking at my leg. I can already feel that it's probably broken. Um, and I see my hand, and I'm like, oh man, I see like a huge gash, and
Mm.
that's what's right now because it was like just a huge gash in my hand, and it was white. And so
You you have any idea what you hit it on?
not at this point. I eventually
Okay.
find out what I hit it on.
Okay.
But at this notion, I don't know what had happened. I don't know if I hit against the window. I just
Right.
know that my hand is not in good shape. It's broken because I can't move it. Like I can't move my fingers, you know.
Oh.
So
Okay.
that's how I knew it was like I felt like it was broken. All right. Afterwards, when I talked to the surgeon, he was like, "You thought your hand was broken. It was really your tendons." So
Well,
yeah. So I found out like I slashed all of the four tendons from my finger. I slashed them, and I didn't. I was like, at that moment, I thought it just broke my hand. I thought I was seeing bone, but it was tendons.
so you're seeing
Um,
you said
hmm?
you're seeing white?
Yeah, white. So your
Yeah.
tendons are pure white. You don't. Most people mistake them. That's what the hand surgeon was saying. He was like, when people cut their hand or hurt their hand, and they see white, it's usually their tendons. They're saying not bone. But thankfully, my hand is not broken. You know, so it won't have to. It won't take long for that to heal. But
Right.
that gash was big. So I was calm. Like I said, I was praying during that time. And what was amazing about it, man, God was he told me that I wouldn't die, but I am going to experience some pain, you know. And so I was already because I was worried about that. Like when you get in an accident, I think what I wasn't worried about my body, like my hand was bleeding bad. My leg was broken, but what felt the worst was the seatbelt was a rash and from the bruising from it because I
Mhm.
didn't know if I had internal bleeding, you know. And I'm
Right.
talking about like all across my belly was bruised, but I've never felt that kind of pain before inside
Mm.
my body. So I just like I've never experienced that, so I don't know if I have internal bleeding. You know, I found out by the ambulance like when the doctor checked me over, I had bruised ribs a little bit. I had a little bruising on my ribs and my lungs, and that was because of the seatbelt, but that kept me safe.
Yeah.
Um,
Let
but
me let,
go
let me
ahead.
share this really quick. Well, I want to hear more. I just want to share this because I think it's important for people that are listening to hear this or understand this. Like in years ago when I was doing EMT, firefighter, paramedic training, I was working as an EMT, and one of the things I found was really fascinating because people don't really understand this, that when there's a car crash, there's generally 3 hits, and people don't realize they think like here's a car, it hits, and then that's it. And that's actually not the case. That's like cars hitting a car doesn't necessarily cause the damage unless you really, crunch somebody like an accordion. So generally, let's just say we hit something, like our car hit something. So the car hit something, but then generally, seatbelt or not, then our bodies hits the seatbelt or our bodies hit the steering wheel. But then our organs, our heart or our lungs or our organs hit our ribs. So that's the third hit. So the first hit is the external, then it's our body, then it's the internal, and that's the internal is generally what causes the majority. Like when a concussion happens from, again, a car hits it, our head hits something, and then our brain hits the skull. And that third one, that's the one that causes damage and internal bleeding or kind of whatever that stuff is. So yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, I never experienced that. So yeah, also I was surprised I didn't have even more damage on that end. But also, just to even share with you, like spiritually where I was at, man, because I was in such a meditative state. God told me that the person had died. He said the person has died. He was male, and he was sad.
And this is while you were in the car and in the seatbelt on.
Yeah, because I was trying to be aware of the situation because I wanted to understand what had happened, like why, you know. One of my daily practices is being in prayer and being in tune with my higher conscious and with my spirit, my spirit man, so I can understand a lot of things. So he let me know, and I didn't know what age. Like I found out the age of the guy later in the police report, but this is I still haven't seen the other person, but what I immediately felt is that he was depressed because he committed suicide. Basically, like he ran to me and hit the wall. And he was dead on sight, which would it was sad. It was a very sad situation because it's a course of what I would want to do. Like I would want to help somebody in that situation, you know. And it was a very like I think it was a heavy thing. And I think that's the only reason why I didn't know. I think the age of the guy, because eventually in the police report we found out he's 19. It's a young person. And to be at a place of depression at that age, that's he was abandoned. Like there was nobody to like help him, process and go through those emotions and be able to handle that. So I think even God informed me with all those things that were going on, but he kind of even protected my heart, because that would have hurt me even probably more than the accident that somebody, was in that state and, was in that moment and took their life because they didn't have somebody that was willing to help them and reach out to them and see them. But even just going back to it, I called my wife. I was calm enough to even find my phone. I called her first, so yeah, I called her first.
This whole point, right? Like, I mean, was it in your pocket or was it out or like? Because who knows where it is?
Yeah, so I knew I had it. So I call her and I'm like, "Hey, baby, I've been in an accident." I'm calling her calm, just like I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
So I'm letting her know where I'm at. I let her know what intersection I was at. Just because if I call 911, I wanted her to know that I was being taken to a hospital, and that she don't get that information from somebody else, and or it was. So I called her first, let her know, and of course she was worried. So she comes speeding towards me. I said, "Take your time."
How far away was it from your house? How many miles, roughly?
Probably like 2.5 at the most. It was very close to home. Very close to home.
You already got the snack and you're heading back to home.
I got the snack and I'm heading back home. Yep. And, so I'm already in the mode of like wanting to go home and rest. I'm tired. I'm tired from the day. But yeah, I go back and call her, and everybody comes. The fire department's right down the street. It's like 4 miles away. All right, so they come. They're the first people to get there. I'm hearing people outside of me trying to check up on me and take me out. So the fire people come, help me out the car.
Do they have to use the jaws of life to cut it open or no?
No, they didn't have to use the jaws of life. Fortunately, my door was fine. Okay. Like I said, it was amazing for my car to be hit like it was, and I'm still able to get out. Only the left side of my body had got like the worst of it. I'm talking about like I didn't have any cuts on my face. I didn't have anything wrong with my right side. My right leg was bruised. It was bruised like a little bit. And I think that was the only thing on my right side that hurt. It was my left leg. My right leg was bruised, but I definitely knew my left leg was broken.
How did that break? What do you feel like you hit?
It felt at the knee joint. Like I felt like maybe I hit the my dashboard.
Yeah.
You know, like I have a picture of like the car. If you see the
Yeah.
car,
Yeah. Let's get it a little closer.
let me see if you can see it better.
Yeah. That's your car.
Yeah, that's my car. So the whole front of it is
Wow.
just destroyed. Because he ran right through the front of my car. So
Wow.
I knew my leg was like it was broken just by the knee joint.
Even
Um,
even that's a blessing because if you would have ran through like the passenger door, that could have been game over.
if I was a little bit closer, he would have ran through me. You know what I'm saying? Like if it was a 1 second more,
Wow.
it'd been my body. You know, so I am grateful. I'm even grateful for the minor injuries I got. Like I said, even though a broken leg and a gashed hand is major injuries, but to me it's still minor comparative like to what I saw that could have happened. You know,
Yeah.
um,
So the first responders, did they put a cervical collar on?
no, they didn't.
Okay.
You know, and I didn't. The craziest thing is I didn't have any back pain. Like even throughout this whole process, I haven't had any back pain, and that's why I even think it's a blessing.
Yeah.
The injuries that I received was a blessing because I didn't experience any back pain. I didn't experience any like head trauma issue, um, which when I should have. Like just how the car got hit. But they what did happen? They wrapped my hand up immediately because all the blood that was on me. I'm talking about like my shoes, my pants. They had to cut all that off because of my hand that was just leaking so much. Um, and it's funny. I kept my shoes, just for like the example of like I wanted just to remind myself of like the how much of a miracle when it was, um, and just of course they take that off me. I'm telling the firefighter like, hey man, I broke my leg. Like I broke my left leg.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy. They're looking at me like, hey, can you get out? I'm like, yeah, but I'm gonna need your help, So,
Right.
they get me on their shoulders and then I get put on a stretcher and they take me they put me in the ambulance and they say, we're gonna put you some morphine or get you some pain. My wife sees me because she gets there
So she gets
and
there while you're out, like on a stretcher.
she gets there when I'm getting out the car.
Okay.
All right, because my car, uh, the doors it can only like it was broken. It can only open for the outside, so I had to wait till somebody opened the door. So, but when she got there, she saw me, and she, like I said, she was grateful to see me. I think it was more even traumatic for her than it was for even me. Um,
Yeah, because you
because
kind of had a heads up. I mean, in a way, you're driving, all of a sudden, like you're in a way you're part of it, right? She's not a part of it, and then you have the adrenaline. You get the heads up, even though you didn't expect this, but it feels like more of a surprise for her than it was for you because
yeah,
it's just like, here's a phone call and it's like life was good, and all of a sudden here's this big thing and this big unknown. But the good news is you're talking and you're calm, so that explains a certain level of, I guess, survival of it. But then when she sees it, it's like, yeah, it's like more dramatic for her, and for you had that heads up, especially seeing it coming, and then even like connecting with God the whole time, kind of before, during, and after.
yeah. And I think that's what even helped me not hold on to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
As much because immediately I already knew just a lot about the situation. Um, and I was, like I said, in the calm state. I was just worried about, honestly, bleeding out internally or, externally.
yep, yep.
Uh, and that was my concern. So they take me to the hospital. Um, and I'm, the hospital is not that far either. It's like 12 minutes away.
Nice.
So it was real close. But it was a while before I got seen. Like I was, of course, wrapped up and taken care of, but I was down and waiting. So I was in the emergency room, like there's a waiting area, and I had to sit there for like 45 minutes before somebody came and a doctor came and see me and checked up on me and checked on my injuries. Uh, but it was interesting in that moment of time of reflecting, like, of course you're like, dang, I should have been home. Like, like
Yeah.
you start going back and then I had to remind myself, like, there's no way, like there's no way you could have known.
Mhm.
And that was the first part of my process of like understanding it was purposeful, you know, because there's no way that I could have known I was going to be injured. There's no way that I could have known that I was going to be hurt from the situation, and be right where I'm at right now. So I started to then even acknowledge that, okay, there's obviously things I need to learn, you know. And I said in that moment, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this this incident that was meant to kind of destroy me and really learn from it, because just like what I've been just learning for like the past year is there's always purpose in pain, and pain without purpose is suffering. And it's my personal belief. I believe that God doesn't want us to suffer. So I was like, let me look for the lessons and understanding in this, you know. And I think that's what helped me understand. Like, okay, what I was like, what are you trying to show me, God, about this? And I've learned. I think me having that mentality and understanding that this is not only for me to learn, but to help me understand others and then help others
Mm.
learn. You know. So there's a lot of times I was taking notes and during the process of going to the hospital, and I was like, let me just absorb everything and just try to learn from every situation from then on. Um, but yeah, that was I think that was the moment when I, besides learning about all the stuff about the accident, but that was the moment I decided to learn as much as I could about what was going on in the accident and through this process of healing and recovering. Um, but yeah, I know. I think it was a little bit, like I said, more traumatic for my wife because she had to wait. Of course, she even beat the ambulance to the hospital. You know,
That makes sense.
she beat she beat us there, uh, and was in the waiting room and stuff like that, waiting on me to get there and to just to see if I was okay and all right. And I was just sitting there, and it was interesting hearing other people. Uh, just I knew they were in pain. And me myself, of course, I'm a morphine. It's still like I'm still like feeling the effects of the accident, but I'm in, like I said, a peaceful state for the
Yeah.
most part. You know, I'm not struggling so much.
What was it like on the morphine? Like, what do you remember from that?
Um, I just remember I couldn't believe just the injuries I received. I think I was in more of disbelief and just like, dang, like I just wonder what's going to happen. Like I saw my hand. Uh, I it felt like I didn't really feel pain from it. Like even when before I received any drugs, I didn't feel pain from it, and I think because of the adrenaline and everything, because I had like a good size. It's like somebody took a scoop out of my hand. Just not to be as graphic, but
Yeah, no, sure.
just it was it like I would say it was about like almost a quarter of an inch of chunk missing from my hand, and you can see dead right into it.
Mhm.
So it was just like, oh man, how is this going to heal? I'm thankful also that it wasn't my right hand because I write with this hand, you
Yeah.
know.
Good
But
hand.
so I was already still grateful. I'm like, okay, at least it was my left hand. I'm still able to do whatever I'm still able to write and stuff. So I was even looking at that and still being grateful for that, that it was my left hand. Uh, Eventually, like in that picture, like when we went to the junkyard, I saw what my hand hit. My hand hit the windshield. It went through the windshield. Cause we saw blood on the glass. So, while driving,
Okay.
it hit and it must have went up and hit the windshield. So that's what we figured what cut it, because we saw, like I said, blood on the windshield when we checked the car.
Yeah.
Um,
Went through the windshield, not the window.
yeah, not the window, not the side window, because the
Oh.
side window was still solid, but the windshield, the car got crunched up to the front. So, and then my hands on the stairwell, my left hand's my driving hand, so it went through the windshield, and then I, looked at it and I saw the laceration in it.
Mm.
But the surgeon came in, said he's gonna do surgery, he's gonna take care of it. He's seen worse. And I'm talking about, he did a good job. He did an amazing job on my hand. For it to be recovered, and it's almost fully recovered. I won't need a skin graft or nothing like that. For how big the chunk is, and it's amazing how the human body, like from week to week to week, I saw this thing.
Regenerate.
Yeah, regenerate from a scoop to now it's like fully back to normal almost, and recovered in that way.
What about movement with the tendons?
With the tendons, it's
Okay.
I have to go to rehab, but I do feel all of them. Like at first, I would say there's still numbness in my knuckles right now, but I'm talking about they're all reattached, but I can move them. Like I couldn't move these two fingers. They were like this because they've been like these two fingers were severed. The edge ones, they were cut, but they weren't as severed as these. Like I couldn't lift this up. Like I couldn't lift these two fingers up.
Yep.
So it was amazing to see that he was able to go in my hand and do surgery like that. Yeah, but even in that process of not having to use my hand, injuring my leg, I know, like I said, that trauma of experiencing that, I think that was difficult for me. Just like I said, it was more difficult for my family. I'm grateful for the timing of it, especially for my son. I think it was hard for him, but luckily we had my in-laws. They were taking care of him while I was going through this. And he didn't see me, I think, until like Thursday, because it happened on a Tuesday.
Yep.
We talked on the phone and stuff like that, but he hadn't seen me. He hadn't came and physically seen me.
So you're in the hospital for how long? How long were you in the hospital for?
I was in the hospital for like two weeks.
2
I was in
weeks.
there for 2 weeks. And I think that the toughest thing about being in a hospital was the constant checking in on you.
Yeah.
Because like I need rest,
Yeah.
And there were some times where I'm trying to like relax and rest and get sleep, and they have to come in and check my vitals, and I'm like, guys, man, I'm gonna be okay. And I understand they're just doing their job. But it was dealing with that, and letting them also understand like I wasn't ready to leave. I would say like in the middle of the week, they were trying to after the first week they were trying to get me out. Like I needed to, because nothing was wrong technically with my right leg, but I had to be able to get up the stairs at my house. And my wife was expressing like, hey, he needs to stay here until he's able to like get the strength. So where's the physical therapist? And the physical therapist, they came eventually that day, thankfully, and was able to extend my stay, because if I was to go home, my downstairs doesn't have a restroom. It doesn't, like, we were trying to figure out how we can work it out, but it doesn't have a restroom, and of course the couches, that's not gonna be comfortable for me to sit on. I'm a big guy, 6'2", I'm long, and sleeping on the couch is not gonna be comfortable for me. So I had to work on it, and even like getting on the ground and the stairs and like pushing myself up. I had to like learn how to walk, or really just crawl up the stairs with my elbow, and slide up. And I knew I could do it, and I was physically strong. I had to do like even the physical therapist, my wife would tell you, they were looking like, that's kind of impossible because the left side, both like my hand and my leg, and they were like, that's kind of hard. She even had to have somebody help her lift her, like they were trying to do the example for me of what I could do, and she
Mm.
even had to have help. But I showed them eventually. I think the ninth day of the week of my stay in the hospital, I was able to get up and go and like to get up myself and do it. And they were even impressed, like, okay, wow, like you're really recovering, and because I was really just focusing on my healing, focusing on trying to get rest, and like I said, try to learn as much as possible from the situation. And I think I learned about a lot of like mental, like how sometimes mental pain is even worse than physical pain. Just
How so? What do you learn? Tell us more about that.
honestly, thinking about like, I was having a conversation with myself and God about like the place I was last year before this. Now, before this situation, I had went through just like a crisis of things not working out business wise. My wife business failed. Uh, I had a big argument with my family, and my best friend of a long time. Like I had just a situation with him, uh, and I've been like it's like my brother, and we had a big disagreement about support and about just what I was going through. I was going through a tax situation. I just had a lot of mental anguish. There was a lot of like discourse and relationships, and I'm talking about what I learned about mental pain is that there's rarely any kind of numbing from it, and you relive it every single day. you know, and you might relive it in the same intensity. You know, like even with chronic pain, it might hurt, right? Or it might be like intense, right? But there's even pain meds. I think with mental anguish, even if we try to cover it up for like addictions or fulfilling something physical, it doesn't soothe it. One of the things I learned too, like it was like during immense pain, there is no kind of like relief. There's only moments of there is no rest, but there's only moments of exhaustion. You
Mm.
know, there would be times mentally that I'm reliving this all over again, and to the point where I'm tired of thinking about this, or it's affecting my whole day because I can't focus on anything else. Like I'm thinking about this, and I'm feeling alone. I'm feeling like I can't do these things. I'm feeling like um, I'm handicapped in a certain way, more than physical. You know, because mental anguish will blind you literally to the options that you have. It will blind you to the help that you need. You know, at least physical pain in your body will give you awareness of it, and even like you'll either go get help or you might lean on something else. You know what I'm saying? You might adjust. But mental anguish, it can be suppressed. It's just as impactful in that way, but we don't address it as much because we we feel like we're supposed to carry on in this way. In the sense of like society. Society tells you, hey man, you got stuff to do, you got responsibilities. You need to just go handle it. And your physical senses become more important. Like I need to eat, I need to sleep, I need to, feel warm. And physically you become aware, but mentally you still feel stuck in a place. So I felt mentally stuck a year before in a certain loop that was just more painful because it hurt. It disconnected me from everything. It disconnected me from my mind, my spirit. It just interrupted that whole cycle. So there was less moments of joy that I could even experience. You know what I'm saying? So I could even recognize that state was worse than this state. Like I was able to even be in a place of gratefulness for even appreciate, okay, like I don't have use of this hand, but I can use this hand. You know, I might have broke my leg, but I still have movement. I still have my life here. I still have, the other physical means to do that. You know, when you feel like you're missing on a relationship, when you feel like a disconnect in it, it feels just as bad as, or like I said, even worse. So that was, eye opening for me to tell even people, like, man, I was worse last year than I am right now.
Yeah.
And I explained to them, like when you feel like you cannot do something, it is like just in your mind. Like if you could not, do that job, or you cannot show up for somebody, it is just as bad as having a broken hand. Because you can't show up mentally for that person. You can't show up emotionally for that person. So if you have those injuries, it's like you can't walk. And we look at people a lot of times, and we're like, why can't they just do it? And we're
Yeah.
not seeing their injuries. And so seeing my physical injuries and comparing them to my mental and psychological, my spiritual injuries, I was like, man, those were greater, you know. And then also that trauma that happened in that accident, I couldn't use the restroom. Like your body holds on because it's still like in that, your adrenaline's still going. So I was just like, man, this is crazy. I've never felt that sensation of like, I gotta go, but I can't, you know?
Yep.
And having to have assistance. It was interesting. They had to put a catheter, and they were going to they were giving me things to help because it's pain pills. They'll constipate you.
Yeah.
And like I said, it can be a big issue if you're not doing that. So also I learned, like, if accident, right, like that I had, that was very traumatic to my body, even though it wasn't traumatic to me like mentally, but it was to my body. It held on to things that are bad for me. It held on to the things that it would usually get rid of. I learned that mentally, like when we go through something traumatic, our body's literally holding on to like things that are not good for us, and that are poisoning us, just like our body would. And it's because we're still in that state. So like learning that, okay, it is more important, it's just as important to get out of a state of trauma and let's call it mental distress,
Mm-hmm.
because you have stuff that you need to let go, and if you don't, it's poison for your body. It's poison for your mind. It's gonna kill you, just as if I didn't take care of getting rid of that waste physically. You know. Uh, so like I said, it was an eye opener to like not look at people and be like, of course I understood like mental pain is just as bad, but I didn't know to like what degree of worse. You know,
Yeah.
if you see somebody with a broken leg, you're not going to expect them to walk. You know, like if I'm not going to look at you, if I saw somebody who had even all their arms, like they were amputee, I'm not going to ask them to hold me up with two hands. You know, but we look at a lot of people and we say, like, we don't see the mental scars they've been through, and we tell them to do something that they're incapable of doing without addressing or seeing them for like what state of being they're in. They might be mentally missing an arm. They might be mentally missing a leg, or have a broken arm. It might not be in alignment or correct. So it just gave me a greater perspective of how to look at somebody and
Yeah.
not to automatically judge. Okay, like seems everything going right. They should be able to. Man, you got to assess.
Yeah.
And really have that conversation with them and see what's really going on. Because on the outside it can be looking good, but on the inside they can be broken.
Yeah.
Broken bad.
Yeah. Injuries are all about perspective. I know we had a close friend, um, daughter got diagnosed with cancer. I believe it was in November. And this is right around the time also that there was November last year. And there was the time when I think Gaza and Palestine, like they were just going nuts as far as like the war and bombing and all that stuff. And it was interesting, walking our friend through this, like mentally and spiritually. And like she was just, saying like in reflecting last weekend, we were talking about it. She's like, she was just how calm I was during the whole time, and there was nothing that was gonna rile me. And she was actually seeing because of all the things I went through, whether it's EMT stuff and doing all that stuff, but going through things myself. And if we have it in our nervous system and in our mental map, we have the ability to walk somebody through it as well. And I was kind of telling her that her daughter was kind of sitting in the hospital and going through this new experience with cancer, and it was really kind of devastating to the family. I said, but I bet you she wouldn't trade it with somebody who's at the Gaza Strip right now. And that's where we're seeing these pictures of horrific things, and people are dying, and everything's kind of like gray because of like bomb and like the dust and all that stuff. And it's kind of interesting in perspective. It's like I bet you if God came up and had an option, you cannot have cancer, but would you want to go to the Gaza Strip right now? And you live there. It's like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
and even like with you right now, I guarantee my left knee, my left hand is better than yours, but your back sounds better than mine. I did a cleanse a couple weeks ago, and for whatever reason, I didn't get as much nutrients. It was kind of like a last minute cleanse that I needed to do. This was a master cleanse, and my body, like my back seized up, and it didn't make any sense logically. But then I actually had to go deep, because with pain, I feel like when pain gets so great, I found, and I coach people through it, and there's always a message behind it. It's always a deeper spiritual lesson. And the more we resist it, the more suffering there is. And I feel like suffering is optional. What I
yeah,
found to be true, lived 44 years so far this life, and I 100% total certainty, like, pain is inevitable. Pain is kind of like a check engine light, of the body. It's like in the game Operation, where you hit the side, zzz, it buzzes. That's what pain is. It just means pay attention, and
yeah,
it's a teacher. And sometimes though, the pain gets so great, there's nothing to do. Like you said, I got to go do these chores. I got to work. None of that matters other than this. And the only thing to do is to go into it. But
yeah,
to do that without God is impossible. So it's
yeah,
actually like bring God, hey God, like football, let's huddle up here. Got this pain. I don't understand it. I don't clearly, because I don't, I don't know that, I haven't gone deep enough within it, but give me the ability to stay with the pain.
yeah,
Give me the
yeah,
ability to see like what's the message behind it and actually go into it. Cause I kind of look at pain as like a volcano, and it's like, and it takes practice and time, but it's like putting your hands together like a prayer position, put it above your head and diving into it. It's actually you forced to surrender when the pain is so great. There's nothing to do. And if you, as a human being, if we resist it, reject it, it actually makes it worse. If we go into it, the mind wants to move away from pain towards pleasure. No, let me do this. Let me play this video game, watch this movie, or take this medication. And there's a time and place for that. But if it's a chronic pain, then there's like a really deep, important lesson. And the only thing I found, not only for myself, but people I walk through, coaching through, is to really go into it and get that message. And once we get that message, the deeper spiritual lesson, miraculously, mysteriously, coincidentally, the pain goes away. Like once we learn the lesson, we no longer need that teacher.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you said, you got to dive into it. And that's what I also did, like during that process. Is not, I didn't want to rely on the pain pills. Like if it was, kind of oxy, I had, it was like a lot of things that I could have taken for the pain. And I did it like when I could manage. You know, if it got to like, they have a pain scale from like 10 to 1, 10 being the worst. The only time I ever took it when I was at an 8. You know, um, but I knew that if I was like, pain is a good sign, for me, because it's telling me, okay, what I need to address. Also, I was even reminding myself, like, pain is a reminder that you're alive and that you
Exactly.
have the functionality of it. Because I've learned, like, if you try to numb something, you can't use it. Like, and that was also one of the lessons I learned. Like, if you try to numb that part of your body, you won't be able to use it. And I would want to be able to use my hand, like if like, even I was reminded about, like, when I've had like dentist work, you know, they tell you not to even eat nothing, because you don't want to damage your tongue or your mouth because it's so numb, you know. Um, so I wanted to experience, that pain to make sure I'm not in a place of where I'm seeking out numbness, but I'm actually diving into, okay, if I understand how much pain I'm in, I understand that if I can move or if I can't move. So I'm not gonna hurt my leg because the oxy, man, if you're on it, like you might feel fine. Like I might move my hand, like feel like my hand's okay, and
Yeah.
it's not okay. So I might even injure myself even more. So seeking for the feeling so I can even know the range of motion I have. You know, I think April 1st I'll be able to put like more weight on this leg. But I think if I was to like take as much pain medicines as I could, just to mask it, I don't think I would have been far in my recovery because I
Yep.
would have known like, okay, I can't move right now. You know, I've learned like, okay, like it's not time for me to be able to like move this leg. I gotta rest. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. So I knew the more I can feel, the more I could gauge how much I could even try during rehab, or I could try just in general without hurting myself. So learning to seek and dive into that pain instead of like mask it, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
There's a really good series that we watched. I think it came out a few months ago. It's called Painkiller. I believe it's called Painkiller. And I believe it's still on Netflix, but it has to do with like the family that started Oxycontin, codeine, cotton,
uh-huh.
and how they like try to like mass produce it and make it actually more popular than heroin. And they kind of show an extreme example of a guy that gets like really addicted to it. I'm sure he had a surgery, he got injured, and they prescribed it, and it kept going up. And he got to a point where he was doing something like that. I think it was like biting through his tongue or something like that, and he couldn't feel it. And everybody's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" And that's an extreme example, but I think, if I was going to prescribe, if somebody's watching this and they've gone through something, an accident, or just gone through something, or going to go through something, or know somebody is, I would kind of prescribe four things. Number one, and see if you agree with some of these things. And number one is like you can't do it alone. You need God's help first and
Yeah,
foremost. The second one I would say is definitely watch, the series Painkiller to get, some research, because you don't want to over medicate. There's a
yeah,
time and place for medication, but, choose the medication wisely, and how much and how often, how long, because, again, you could get hooked on it. If we're talking about you need God's help, well, there's divisive energy. There's the opposite of God that wants people through crisis, through things like that, wants people to get addicted to things, wants people to do without God, which, there's that. The third one is you do need to get some sort of like help or cleanup, some coaching to um, basically help you, somebody that's actually can do this to walk you through it. Which is the fourth part is there's these, our mind is always recording the whole time. Our unconscious mind is recording. And that's what PTSD is, or what traumatic experience is. The mind's recording, and then it's only recording its perception. Pardon me. It's only recording what's perception, what happened. It's not the real event. Like anytime you go back to the memory of what happened, it's not like you're reliving the event. You're not necessarily reliving the event. You're reliving your perception of the event,
yeah.
because the event's dead, gone, over with. This is, our perception of it. The issue is with the mind, it's what's called in neurolinguistic psychology, it's called anchoring. So basically it means we have this picture or this video that's replaying, but it also takes a snapshot of the feelings, whether that's flight or fight, panic, fear, anxiety, worry, all those things, and it gets anchored to that. So when it replays, the mind's like, okay, deal with this now, but the emotions are going to be there. And the reason why the emotions are there is because they haven't been processed, because you didn't get a heads up. You weren't like expecting it, or ready for it. So like I said, I think like definitely need to do it with God. Definitely watch. It's such a good information. Painkiller, that series. Definitely get like some sort of help, not whether it's physical therapy, but it's the psychological part, the mental and spiritual part, and deal with, like, release those,
Jeez.
um, yeah, those pictures or memories, because you have to learn the deeper spiritual lesson. Otherwise, the teacher's going to repeat and repeat, which causes the suffering. And so what percentage do you feel like, if anything, is left over of like the images or the pictures that maybe hasn't got fully processed yet?
I'll probably say there's probably like maybe like I think 15% of the maybe residual of like subconsciously, just because I think I had just moments, just for me personally. Uh, I hate feeling helpless. You know what I'm saying? I hate feeling like there's no control, in the sense of not just even for myself, but I hate feeling helpless, like in able to help others. You know what I'm saying? And there were moments in time during this process where I couldn't help my wife or my son process it. I had to like watch as a bystander a situation that I'm going through affect them. You know what I'm saying? So I would say just in general, but like for the most part myself, of experiencing the trauma, like I don't have any fear of going in a car. I've been in a car multiple times. I don't have a fear of driving. I'm not even fear of being on a road, you know? Um, I think, like I said, the hardest thing with me in dealing with this was feeling helpless to help them, in the sense of you have to like let them go through their emotions and feel it and process it. Um, and even like, I think people, just outside forces, you know, giving them a hard time. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was the hardest thing about this situation, for me. You know, uh, having to remind my wife I'm okay. You know, this is I was here, like, 'cause she calls me, of course, a miracle, and I was like, yeah, it's a miracle, you
Yeah.
know. But I was like, even you being here is a miracle. Like I was
Yeah.
like, don't downplay like it. Like, well, every time you go in that car, it's a miracle that you come back home. I was like, I felt the same way, in expressing to her that, yeah, it was like every time you come back, you're just as much of a miracle as I am. You know, and like I said, even for my son to when he came to visit me, I would say this. It's awkward. It was awkward for him not to like immediately come up to hug me. You know, my son was kind of standoffish because he just didn't know what kind of state I was in. I
Yeah.
had to remind him that, hey man, daddy's okay. Because to him, I'm Superman. I'm the strongest man he's ever seen. So to see me in this kind of state where I'm injured and where, hey man, daddy's not doing all right. He's not able to do the same things. He's not able to pick you up. You know, um, I had to reassure him, that I was okay. That, hey man, daddy's just as strong as he was, before he got hit. You
Yeah.
know, and that he's okay. So that was, like I said, that was the biggest. I think the images that I would struggle with. You know what I'm saying, and not take them on and relive those things. Uh, but the accident, it was fine. Like I said, I think I processed that. I felt my emotions about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let me ask you this, Brian. Would you like help now, taking that 15% left and bringing it down to zero in a matter of minutes?
yeah, we can do that now. I'm open to it.
Okay, cool. So let's do this. So what's the first one? Is it your wife or your son? Which is the first one that I guess would be the easiest to process to give you the most relief?
I'll say my wife. I'll say
Wife.
seeing her. Mhm.
Okay, seeing her. Okay. So before we do from her point of view, let's do this. Overall, if I were to ask, I mean, if you actually just invite God, invite the presence of God, the divine presence into the room that you're in, and just ask it to fill up not only every square inch of the room that you're in, but also to ask God to fill up his presence with every like square foot of your house and everybody in it, whoever's there or not, doesn't matter. Just and just the first thing that comes to mind. So ask overall for you, this situation happened not to you, but for you. And so ask God, what was the overall lesson, message, takeaway for you to learn? Not your wife, not your son, just you. What was the biggest thing for you to learn and take away? How it's basically your life is going like this, and an asteroid hit it, in a way redirected it and pointed you in a different direction. So what was the first thing that comes up when I ask you, like, what was the overall message, lesson, reason for this experience? First thing.
Um, First thing that comes to mind is that this happened for me to help me understand pain and how to help others process it. So I won't fail in addressing it. Uh, yeah, that was the first thing that comes to mind. I care so much about people and where they're at. This happened for me, so I won't be fooled. I won't make a mistake in helping other people, but I'll be able to see them in their pain and address it correctly.
So to open up your eyes in a different way and give you the ability to fully experience and process a really valuable part of life, so then you can actually see it in other people and walk them through it too.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. That's great. Now, ask for, if this makes any sort of sense. So you were saying in your mind it's reliving seeing your wife, and it's maybe like the expression on her face, or what she was going through. So ask, I'll give you a couple different ways to do it. Ask God to either give you, like, how to explain this. You're looking at her in your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
But ask God if you can actually give you the perspective kind of floating outside of you, going into her perspective, and asking God from within her perspective, what was she meant to learn from this experience and take away? Not has nothing to do with you or your son, just her,
Sure.
to God.
Okay.
What's the first thing that comes to mind?
The first thing that comes to mind is that everything will be okay. Like life has always been taken care of, and everything will be okay. Like there's nothing too big or too small that I can handle. Like I can't handle. Like I can handle. That's the first thing that comes to mind
And
when,
maybe she's stronger than she might realize,
yeah,
more equipped than she might have considered or realized, and actually has the goods, like, to support you to go through this. And yes, she's supporting you, but she's also supporting herself and supporting your son and whoever else, that, like, there's a deeper spiritual lesson from her. And just so ask God to give her whatever she needs, like move any obstacles or completely surround and go inside of whatever it is that she needs in order to receive what she needs from this experience.
yeah, yeah.
And as you ask, and as that's happening, how does that feel with not being able to help, control, whatever, however you want to frame it? How does that feel now?
I do feel lighter. I guess I feel the lightness of the thought. I think I just felt lighter. I felt the burden is released. Of being even concerned with that situation. Like I do feel a release from it. So yeah, I feel good. I feel good now thinking back to it.
That's great. And what about your son?
My son,
Let's ask God, from God's point of view, what is it, according to God, that your son needed to receive or learn from the situation that actually will help him on his life's journey, within his life's purpose? Is some sort of like download of the deeper spiritual lesson behind this experience. So what's the first thing that comes to mind when I ask you to ask God, what was it that your son needed to learn and receive from this experience, from just his point of view?
um, that I think the first thing that comes to mind, just from it, the lesson that I see that he needs to learn is that uh, you have strength no matter what state you're in. Like you have strength no matter what kind of like physical state that you're in, that there's no matter what it looks like on the outside, that you're strong, you know, um, and that you'll still be able to be held and be comforted through that. Like I said, the state. So yeah, that's good. I do feel like, well, just hearing that, that's helped me just release it. Seeing that.
And then that just asks God to be able to let your son receive that deeper spiritual lesson in a way that would work best for your son. So just like God, like, you can remove anything, just help him. Because what I found about God, and God needs to be directed. God isn't necessarily automatic. It can be in certain situations if we're in alignment with it. But what I found is like the opposite of God is more automatic. Will, go in through cracks or go in where it's not wanted or not asked to. But God, we actually have to ask. We have to partner up and say, I need you to help me. I need you to help this person in this moment. So you can just ask God to just help him in the way that God knows best. It's all you got to do is ask. Help him receive this lesson through this transition, not only now, but the rest of his life, of course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I believe that God's respectful, you know. So yeah, respects our wishes. So yeah, God, I pray that you help him receive that lesson and receive it and remove anything that's hindering him from receiving it, so he can receive that healing and have the correct perspective on the situation. But yeah, I feel good. I feel good about it.
And that's awesome. If we circle back from the 15%, what percentage, if anything, is left?
Actually, I don't think there's really any percentage left to even like yeah, I feel clear of it. And it's funny how you need help to like process these things. And not saying that, like, I think that's why I respect even what you do, and just therapy in general, because there's so many things that even that 15, not dealing with that 15%, could have came up in another way and have been harmful and detrimental. So like that's why I'm always grateful for this practice in this field, and even what you practice. You know, so like I said, I feel just even relief from that 15% is helpful. No matter how small it was, even if it was 5, I know that it's important to even deal with that.
Yeah, I feel it needs to be 100% processed. And
Yeah.
the reason why is because I've worked with, I want to say, hundreds of clients specifically that have gone through some sort of accident. Usually has to do with car accidents, but there could be other accidents. And I know with 100% total certainty that there is divisive forces that kind of lurk around, especially accidents, because people are going about their day and they're not really prepared for it mentally. People, like, for me, I'm so grateful that I have an EMT, do paramedic training, firefighter training, and I guess had the advantage to be driving the ambulance or having my patient or assisting. Like I'm how do I explain it? I'm like behind the scenes and I get to see that. So it gave me a heads up to be in situations where I'm just more comfortable with emergency or adrenaline or life or death situations like that. I'm really, really grateful. And I've always, every single call I've been on, every single accident I come up to, I've like not one time I didn't have God there consciously. It's not even unconscious, it's consciously there. And I know the power of the mind, and I know the power that this reminds me of a story one time when, I don't know what year it was. I'm going to make up a number, 2017,
Mm-hmm.
2017-ish, maybe probably more like 2015, actually, if I think about it more technically, where Amanda and myself, we were going to, my brother was having a wedding. What do they have? What are the parties before weddings? Not bachelor party, but I don't know, some sort of wedding party, I guess. And for him, and so we were at New York, and he lives in Long Island, and I believe we were if I remember correctly, we were at, I think, his place, and we were going to the place we were staying. And it was at night. It was dark. I'm gonna say around 9, maybe 9:15. And we came up to a four-way intersection. I don't know Long Island very well, but it's a long island. It's an island that's long. And there was one of these intersections, and there was a guy who was on a motorcycle, and he was laying on the ground, and it just happened that we actually heard the crash. And so there was nobody on scene. And I have my training. Not only like was I, have my training, but I got invited to teach back at my school to actually teach other EMT students coming up. But then I also got invited to be even one level higher, part of like a tester out or a trainer at the national level to actually certify people. So there's one level to teach and one level to certify. So I kind of had two levels up from normal EMTs. And I would, there's like triage scenes, like where, there were so many different scenarios, and I'd be the one to lead the whole thing because that's, the skill level and the confidence my teachers had. So we got up in the scene, and I told Amanda, a lot of people are parked, and most people, what they do is they freeze. They don't know what to do. They don't have the file in their mind. And so many people are afraid of fear, or really not. They're afraid of death. They don't want to talk about it. They want to go around it. And that's just not me. And so I went right up to it, and it was kind of rainy out. I would say out of like 100% rain, it was like 25% rainy out. And so it was rainy out, and this guy hit a car. I don't know who was at fault. I didn't know. It doesn't matter really. But this guy was laying, his right leg was straight, left leg was bent. He was on his back, and he had his helmet on still, black leather jacket. And he was had a motorcycle, and he was kind of just doing this moaning, making these pains. And I went up and quickly saw his right quad. So he had like jeans on, but so you said there was like a little divot in your hand, but 50% of his leg was gone.
Oh, wow.
Like from the knee, like to the bone to the thigh. And I could see his bone and tendons and everything. For me, that's not a big deal. Like it's just like, huh. But it's not even like, I don't like, honestly, I don't care. It's like there's something to do. There's a protocol. Like it's not my fascination or fear. None of that. It's just like there's something to do. So he wasn't doing bleeding. We didn't need to do a tourniquet, but I was the first one on the scene. And I thought it was just so interesting how like when other paramedics and things came, they were kind of really slow. And I noticed that sometimes with certain EMTs or paramedics a lot slower than I would go. And I was putting like I finally got some equipment to put on there. But the point I'm making and how powerful the mind is based off of my hypnosis, my EMT, I guess, and hypnosis training, hypnotherapy training, I actually started to talk to him conversational hypnotherapy, and he didn't have the morphine. The morphine was, I'm going to go ahead and say half hour away from the accident. That's
Oh, wow.
like how far. And I knew that. And so I used actually hypnotherapy to start talking to him, and I took the pain. It was like unbearable for him. And I took it down to basically a 1 or 2
Oh, wow.
by talking, and I anchored it. So like I basically, if that makes sense, like a baton, I attached like the hypnotherapy to almost like to when he gets the medication, then that actually can help take over and relief, but also he can actually process it too. And I brought God. It's like I didn't even, how to explain it. It's not even important to, beliefs aren't important necessarily at that moment. As far as like if he believes in God or not, it doesn't really matter. I just brought God there, like without inside, but also I told them about it, like in angels and protective, just whatever God, spoke through me. But it's just the power of the mind, even in extreme situations like this, it can be brought down if somebody knows what they're doing. That's why it's really good. I feel like important for EMTs to have like our NLP training or hypnotherapy training, because the more people are in or parents or like people that have situations to actually understand like pain and respect it and the message, you actually can bring it down only if the person is going to get the message in the other side, because the unconscious mind can do that. So that's kind of like a one thing from physically and mentally, but more importantly, I guess spiritually, there's these divisive energies. You can call them like demons, and they like to attach themselves to people because their guards are down.
Yeah.
And so many times, hundreds and hundreds of times, I worked with people, and they didn't necessarily come to me with an accident. Some people did, like, I'm having this pain because of this accident. Well, then we go back and actually trace and clear it. All of a sudden, miraculously, mysteriously, coincidentally, doesn't matter how long they had the pain, they don't have it anymore within one session. or they're having some sort of issue in their life and we actually trace it back. And again, the best way, the visual I can share for you and like the listeners, it's like there's these, like, let's just say demons are, they're all in there, like they're invisible, they're not physical, they live
Yeah.
in the spiritual world, they don't live in the psychological, or they can impact the psychological and physical, but they don't live there. And they kind of, let's just say like a spirit, and they kind of lurk around, so to speak. And if somebody has so much fear, and then the conditioning is how most people are conditioned, I think through like Hollywood and a lot of different things, is, when the going gets tough or when there's more fear, push God away unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing to the degree somebody feels a fear, let's say we measure fear out of 100. Well, let's do like a spiritual measuring stick. Like let's call fear out of 100 emotional, measuring sticks. So 0 is not feeling fear at all, and 100 is feeling, 100%. But that same emotion, like fear, same amount of distance, God is away or close to somebody, because God and fear can't exist in the same space in the same time for a long period of time. Literally, fear is an experience of without God. It's literally like a child. You go to a store, you're like 3, 4, 5 years old, and you go to a store and you never, every day when you wake up, you see your parent. Let's just say you see your mom, and she's always there, and you go to bed and you go to sleep and you get snacks. But then you go to a store for the first time, and then you're shopping and you can't see over all the clothes racks, and she just literally goes around and you can't find her, and you you have that fear, and because you can't see. And that's exactly what it's like, with fear that way. And with accidents, that's a lot of people have pain 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years after their accident. They shouldn't. They literally
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't, unless there's like a physical deformity or a bone spur or something like that. But literally, so many people, my back for so long. Well, what is holding on to it? The mind is holding on to it, and it's, tighten up the muscles. Well, why? Because the lesson hasn't been released. The lesson hasn't been learned. And that's what that divisive energy wants. It wants, best case scenario for that divisive energy, wants people to be on medication for the rest of their life, be in pain the rest of their life, not team up with God with this, maybe lash out with their family, and just basically, like, it directs the course of their life's purpose. Because every single opportunity like this, like an accident or thing, is an opportunity. You're going to do the dark path or the light path. The dark path is
Mm-hmm.
snoozing now, and it's a lot more painful later. The light path is confronting now, and it's a lot more easier later. And nobody can make us choose. But that's the biggest thing I want people to hear and talk about, is that with every accident like that, it's generally a lot of fear and people push it away. Then there can be negative secondary gains, and those need to be
Yeah,
cleared.
I 100% agree. Even before this, man, just like I said, dealing with all the stuff that I was dealing with the year before, learning that those forces and those things try to trap trauma, like your purpose as you continue to seek it, and if you can even like what I was helping, like God was helping me understand and write down every single situation that I, let's say, that was traumatic for me. Things even the past that I've healed from. It was like, look at the lesson that you was like, even the wrong lesson that you learned, and look at the lesson that I was trying to teach you. Because in that wrong lesson, it was trying to hinder the good lesson that you were supposed to learn. Like,
Yeah.
I think I was looking at it like my bikes got stolen as a kid. All right. And it was a big traumatic thing for me because it was my first bike, very expensive for my mom to like spend time. And I'm talking about me and my mom. My mom was freaking an inspector. Like, she did the legwork. I'm talking about, and we basically busted bike trafficking scheme. Like, they were taking people's bikes and like
Oh,
redoing them and selling them before, like, so you couldn't even recognize your bike. Like,
like a chop shop.
like a chop shop for real, but for bikes. you
Yeah.
know? But it was a lesson to like, for me to like to not trust people, to be
Mm,
selfish, to don't share, don't, because I found out it was one of my friends, and it was his older brother that stole my bike, you know.
mm,
Uh So the bad lesson was, hey man, don't share. People are evil. People are bad. They're not worth, sharing with. And as you can see, is my name, sharing his knowledge. Like I've learned and I've healed from that. So like just taking those traumatic situations, because whether you feel like you said, all these things are happening for you, so God is also causing good experience to happen for you so you can learn lessons. And also those traumatic lessons or experience is for you to learn something, and if you could take a moment to see what lesson that was negative or even positive, what were you supposed to learn, and I've learned so much in doing that and pursuing my purpose, that I've learned that if you even look at those situations that, okay, that was real bad. Why did that happen to me? It was to trap something so you can't help somebody else. It was to hinder you from walking the path of light. Because as you can see, if you understand the good lesson, okay, this is empowering. This is something that if I take a hold of, I can grow, you know. But if I can keep you, if I'm a divisive energy or a demon, I want to keep you in a place where you can't help nobody else. I want to keep you disconnected from the people that you're supposed to be connected to, you
Yep.
know. So like even us coming in contact, I had to even heal from abandonment issues, from
Mm,
even letting a man speak into my life. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
How can I let how can I have a coach or a mentor or a guider if I don't heal from that?
Yep.
If I stay in that painful place of living in the past of how men in the past have hurt me. You know what I'm saying? So if you look at the lesson of that trauma and pursue God and then your purpose and all those things, and like you said, the NLP, uh, taking that process and experience something with a life coach, and you can grow so much more. You can walk and you can live in a more empowering and fulfilling life. Because we know money and success, no matter how much money you have, we see it all the time. Like, people hurting themselves because of their success. And it's because they still haven't healed or processed or invite God in those spaces. You know what I'm saying? And deal with it. So, man, like I said, I 100% agree that, like the training and the coaching style, even you do, I would say, is just even been just it's the most impactful I've seen. Um, Even wise of like things I've seen, like therapy wise, just other options I've seen out there. I think just your intro awareness, it 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 expands the mind and the consciousness of a person to be able to connect to their spirit man or their higher conscious. I love the process of healing, the structure, and then mastery.
Yep.
You know, people never heal, so they never get to mastery, and we all want that. We all long for that. You know what I'm saying? So you're right. Trauma, you want to push God away, but it's always important to keep him close. And like I said, your program and what you even teach and coach, it helps people connect to that part of themselves. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, 100. To me, it's about bringing it together. Like even our intro awareness logo is bringing. There's four arrows pointing in, and
yeah,
so we actually represent each one of the four worlds: the physical world, so get it as healthy as possible; the psychological world, getting it as mentally focused as possible and clear; the spiritual world, getting as connected to God as possible; and then the financial world, which is wealth. Money is included in wealth. Wealth isn't limited to money, but getting as like the more we have, the more we have to give, and the more we focus internally and integrate, then there's actually four arrows pointed out. So that's what we can give. To the degree that we put in is what we can actually give out. And yeah, we're overtly on a mission, to help God and God's children or God's people, and we're 100% doing the opposite of the divisive energy, and that's why we like to talk about it openly and basically share what the divisive energies tries to do, which is try to like divide a person, their conscious and unconscious mind, their unconscious mind and higher conscious God, their body from their mind, all these different things, themselves from themselves to their loved ones, themselves from the people they need to help with,
Yeah.
and then keeping it almost not even connected to, because I feel like we can only connect with God, we can only attach with the mind or the ego, but attach to the negative things, the negative issues or the programs that no longer serve. And it all that divisive energy is like, awesome. You had a negative experience that you didn't fully process without God. And guess what? Let's just repeat it over and over again to get you like stewing in the past, because the most successful people obviously don't focus on the past negative stuff. They don't. They
Yeah.
actually process that. They learn the lessons. They're present and they focus on what they're going to do positively in the future. And so we just try to, as much as we possible from every angle, call it out and say, like, this is what it's doing. And here's also some resources of what to do differently. And we just need to team up now
Yeah.
more than any other time in human history. We just need to team up. We need to come together. We need to support each other. We need to multiply God.
Yeah. 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 Multiply God. Yeah, exactly, man. Uh, and that's what even like the program that I even have, like the process of the image I help like create for them and curate is a higher conscious. It's like a visual internal representation of themselves. And man, I it's been so powerful. Of even for myself, I have a picture for myself that I have to remind myself this is who I am, and this is what I'm supposed to do. So anything that comes along and try to challenge it, I remind myself of this picture of myself in this meditative state, helping other people. Um, because that's what I think, we don't understand that we're run so much by our unconscious mind, and we're just running on this life cycle of just emotions and trying to feel something, and it's so crazy if you're just not aware. If you're just not aware of yourself, the decisions that you're making in life, what you want to do, um, and what are your goals and what you're trying to accomplish, you know, and having an image of who you are, how you function, what do you want to do. Man, it's been so powerful, like I said, to keep reminding me, like even through situations where I'm not seeing myself or thinking about myself, or I can hear the thoughts that are coming in. Maybe I'm like, man, this doesn't sound right. This doesn't match. And refocusing myself to see, okay, yeah, this is who I am. It's not my physical body. It's not these injuries. It's not, um, just what I'm going through. I'm not this. I don't identify with my injury. I'm at
Mhm.
it, and I think a lot of times, like, I think we talked about it before, like identifying with your injury or identifying with something that is wrong with you. And it's like, no, man, that's not even me. Like
Mhm.
connecting myself to this, my spiritual self and just my inner self. This is my car. This is my vehicle that helps me experience, this physical world. You know, but understanding, like I have my conscience. I am connected to the spiritual world. I'm connected to this, financial world. Like my car might have a flat tire, but I'm still okay. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? There's stuff I can do about that. You know. So yeah, just keeping myself focused. It's just it's amazing process what the mind and what the body and having all those things connected can do. You know, spiritually inviting God to those places.
100%.
Um,
And you really specialize when you work with people coaching is to help them with their image, inner self image, and actually to connect it with God.
yeah, connect with God, connect with their image, connect. See, I really help them discover what they are, like things that are special about them. I would say like we're gonna help them with an image and then discover your abilities. A lot of times we don't see what's special about ourselves. We have this like perspective of that I'm not special, or I don't have these qualities or these traits. I don't have nothing to give, and you have so much to give. You know, uh, everybody's a treasure. This is how I discovered this. Um, it was pretty funny because I dealt, I worked at a gas station for a lot of my life. I worked like I think 14 years there, and I would deal with, people of all levels. I would deal with celebrities, and I would deal with kids. I would deal with the garbage man, just all types of characters. And man, so I had to learn how to deal with a lot of different personalities. And what I found is, especially with even people who are upset, come in complaining about just simple
Whatever.
stuff, uh, that they all have value. Like, God was taking me through. I was meditating. I was like, God, I need help. Dealing with these crazy customers. I just need help. And it was funny. He took me through this process. He was like, I need you to imagine them as a child. And he said, imagine them as a child, and then imagine them growing up through all like the worst situation you can ever imagine.
Wow.
And he was like, now, if you understood all that and you see them come in and then they yell at you, are you upset, or do you have more patience? And I was like, yes, I have way more patience. And then he was like, if you can treat those customers like babies, like the babies that didn't get the love or the care that they deserve, you can do that job. Like you can have more patience. And that's how I taught my staff. And I'm talking about, I would come in, like they would take me to other stores to help increase customer service, because I would help people have that kind of perspective that God took me through, of treating your customers like a child. A baby's gonna whine when it needs a nap. It might not have the words to communicate to you that, hey, I'm hungry, I'm tired, or I'm in pain, but I'm going to cry, And that's the same thing as people. You might not understand why they're acting that way. You don't have time to look at their life and their history of life, what they're going through. But they're coming in and they're going through stuff, and they're just taking it out on you. You know what I'm saying? Whether, of course, there are boundaries. We're not going to allow certain things. But if somebody's complaining to you about something, do your best to take care of them, handle it, and then get them out, you know? And they, like I said, having that perspective helped me deal with a lot of crazy people. And then it helped me help my staff and my team. And then they saw the care and all those things, and I was able to be a better leader because I had that perspective. You know what I'm saying? So like having those images and taking the time to like I said, really understand the lesson that God's trying to teach you, it's way more impactful, you know? So I know what I have a question for you, like even throughout the years of you coaching, like what do you think is in these kind of situations where somebody's going through something traumatic, like uh what are you think like the top 3 things that hinder people from receiving their healing, and just taking that step?
Top 3 things that hinder somebody from receiving healing. Number 1 would be ego.
Mm-hmm.
The part that they identify that's not their true self, that's just nothing more than an ancient psychological program that is really meant to be learned from and dissolved, so it becomes dissolved. It can only be dissolved by God being close, so they can actually learn these lessons. Like we need to, there's that saying that people don't, like if you ask God for courage, God doesn't give us courage, gives us situations to be courageous.
Mm-hmm.
So if we really want love, if somebody says, hey, I want to be, unconditional love, then you're going to be exposed. Someone says that, God, I want unconditional love. It doesn't happen like that. God's not a genie. Some things can be given instantly, sure, out of infinite possibility, but not something like unconditional love. God's like, cool, let me show you all the different areas of yourself, all the different parts of you, all the different levels where you do not have unconditional love. And if you really genuinely want unconditional love, Frodo, you got to take this ring and you got to go to Mordor. It's going to take as long as it's going to take. And you got to throw in the fire and you're going to get your finger bitten off by a Gollum, Schmeagle, not Gollum. But it's kind of like that, like a journey of life. It's like you say you want unconditional love. Let me show you, like, here's where you're at. Here's where you want. Let me show you everything that's not in alignment, that's in between. And if you can solve, heal, connect every single part of that, then you can get what you want. But that's like so simple in life. Here's where you're at. Here's where you want. Everything in between must be healed, released, learned from, or upgraded or dissolved. So I think ego would be number one. Number two would be if somebody hasn't broken through the healing in the ancestral lineage, then you're going to be the first one to do it. And it is most challenging. It is more challenging being the first one, 100%. But there's an advantage of it. I don't know exactly the saying, but in the financial world, they say like, or maybe just in the world, but like, show me like a great man and a great son or something like that. The point I'm trying to make is it talks about, especially in business, like if somebody grows up poor and they do personally the work that it takes to become really high level wealth conscious and successful. And then one of the worst things parents can do is to give their children everything they didn't have when they were younger.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the, that's almost a guarantee of not, making a great child. And what I mean by greatness, it's not a judgment. Greatness means exceptional, above, kind of a cut above the rest, doing things different, giving more God, more lessons learned. That's what I mean by great. Great is like, just because you're in the NBA, it is to me doesn't mean you're a great basketball player. You may be really good, but you're not Michael Jordan. Michael
Yeah.
Jordan is like great. You know what I mean? Great's different, cut above the rest. And I the same thing for kids. So it's not to give your kids everything you didn't get when you were a kid and poor. You're supposed to teach your kids everything you didn't learn when you were younger.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So the second besides ego is not having it within your DNA, within your not even collective consciousness, your ancestral consciousness. Um, but there's no excuse in the world of success, in the world of life, in the world of earth. There's no excuse. Like, who cares? The advantage of being the first one is you embody it. Yes, you break through your head over the big ice wall, a foot of ice wall. Once you break through, you can actually lift other people up. And yes, it would be easier for other people. And yes, that's the intention. It should be easier for your kids than you, and it should be easier for you than your parents, and it should be easier for your parents than their parents. Like when we're younger, that's evolution, and that's the intention. But I think maybe that's the three things. Which it all really goes back to the first one, but
Yeah.
ego, which is really operating with God far away from you. That's really what that is. God's close, the ego starts to dissolve. Not God's here and the ego's gone. No, that part of the ego. There's way more parts of the ego than people realize. And that's a whole journey itself. But then not having the knowledge or whatever, but then also not having the resources. So
Yeah.
it's like, but that's also an excuse because these are the different things, but that's the ego thing. I don't have the resources. Well, cool. Where can you get it? Is it possible in the world? Yes, we would be all screwed if you didn't have the resources and not one other person on the planet did ever. Sure, then that would be tough. And I don't know what to say. I would say pray to something, right? Pray to God, but I don't know if no one's ever done it before. But a lot of people have done it. So
Yeah.
then if you don't have it, where can you go and get it? To be around someone else, the greatness or the environment. Or if again, so many people, they don't have in their ancestral lineage. So the whole apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You need to get into a different orchard. You can't keep doing what your parents did. No judgment, but you can't keep doing what they did, especially expecting different results. You have to go to a different orchard and get development and be around other men than your father, be around other women than your mom. Nothing wrong with mother and father, but mother and father shouldn't be the only people in your life. They should be
Yeah.
really powerful, important, but men need to be around other men need to be around other women, men need to be around children, women need to be around other women need to be around other men, other children. So we need to be around each other in a community. But it all goes back to, so there's really no lack of resources I found within coaching in life. There's only a lack of resourcefulness,
Yes. Yeah.
which goes back to
Ego pocket.
the willingness. So all three would just really could be summed up to willingness.
Mhm.
What stops people, in my personal and professional opinion, my experience, is the lack of willingness to do what it takes. Um, a really great example is some of my two favorite clients that Amanda and we do couples coaching with. They're just awesome people, and they're breaking through so many things. They're just some of our favorite people to work with. Are also friends of ours too. But yesterday, we had a session last night and a couple session, and we've been doing like the internal psychological and spiritual work. But I also have 20 years of corrective exercise core special. I haven't wasted my life, so I've done a lot in life, and it's just a fact. So I have the ability to help them, their physical bodies, and Amanda and I do. And so we gave them the option before the session. Hey, we can do a continuation of the last session, which we did a 21-point movement assessment to find out exactly what's going on with the issues with their bodies to correct it. Or we can do some of the deeper internal work, even though this would be the deepest way to go. And he really brilliantly said, I talked it over with my wife, and the ego doesn't want to do this physical stuff. And it's not working out. It's actually this corrective exercise. It's myofascial release. It's unlocking the body, but the mind is stored in the entire body. And when you actually unlock the body, it unlocks emotions, and it's great. But he really brilliantly said, and this is really the only people I want to surround myself with, which he said in a text, he said, well, my ego really doesn't want to do this, and it's more comfortable to do just the inner and the talking stuff. So we're going to go ahead and do this. The thing that my ego doesn't want to do, because he wants maximum growth. He wants to dissolve.
Yeah.
That right there is an embodiment of willingness. In the fighting world or in sports, they call it heart. And there's this thing is you can't coach heart.
Yeah.
You can coach baseball swing, you can coach jab, you can coach a kimura, you can coach certain mindset things, but you can't coach heart. So all three of those goes back to the lack of willingness. And I feel like it takes a strong soul being to say, I'm going to confront this fear, hurt, pain, loneliness, whatever the negative emotion seems to be. It's only negative because it's not connected to God. If you connect it to God, fear is no longer, you can never feel alone if you're with God. I mean, you can feel alone, but you can't feel loneliness if you actually connect it to God. So that's what I would say. I would sum it up is the lack of willingness or the willingness. It doesn't matter. I know I've seen it time after time. I've been studying Navy SEALs, and the Navy SEALs are studying the Navy SEALs to say what makes a great Navy SEAL, and they can't quite figure it out because there's different walks of life, different. Some people are really, Ivy League Princeton. Some people are, dirt poor. Some people have an most abusive situation. Like David Goggins is the only one in the history of military, I think, that did Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Special Forces, and I think Delta Force. There's 3 different like elite military things, and he's the only one that's done it. And he's had, as far as I can tell in research, probably the most messed up childhood out of any other of those guys. And that's what people don't understand about abuse or about things like that. Like, you can profit from poverty, you can profit from abuse, you can profit from darkness. You do need God. You do need to have your own back. You do need to confront it, but anything can be turned, kind of into gold. But that can't be coached. So I feel like if a person is ready, then they'll do it. If they're not ready, they push the snooze button. They're still going to have to deal with whatever the thing is they're going to deal with, but they're going to have some negative interest. So it's going to be a little bit harder snoozing it down the road. It's just a thing of life. But that's what I see. And that's what I would, share is it comes down to willingness. To confront the ego, to be the first one, the ancestral lineage to do it, to team up with resources, even if you don't have it and you don't know it. I have it, you have it, my wife has it, all of my clients have it because I've, filtered out and find out what kind of clients I work with. All my friends have it. I only allow people in my life that have that. That's like, I don't need to know, but I'm going to find out. I might not have it personally, but I want to team up, but I want help with it. But if they're teaming up with me, it's like, I want to do it. I want your help, Jeremiah, but I also want God's help. And I also want God to bring whoever, is the best person to help me too. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're perfect. Like, man, I agree 100%. Like, your ego, dissolving it and realizing, like, I remember when we were first talking about, like, it's an ego thing to think that you can save everybody. it's an ego thing to block you from your resources and thinking that you have the answer, whether you need to learn from somebody else, and it blocks you from seeing all those resources that you have around. Your ego tries to keep you as a victim, you know, of saying like it tries to say, okay, like because people think it's an empowering thing, like I can do this, but if it comes from a wrong place, like the will, like there is the will to live, and that's an amazing strength and ability to have. But it comes, like I remember, if it comes from your like that your inner person, your spirit, you know, if it's not that imaginary, that false confidence, because you know that will can be broken if it's anchored in the wrong place. You know what I'm saying? And what you're talking about is that will being anchored in that correct place of that I know I can do this. I know who I am. I'm connected to myself, God, um, and to that inner person. Because like I've seen a lot of people who have like will, they have willpower, but it's anchored in maybe their physical ability. And when that physical ability is gone, that is gone,
Mhm.
or they're anchored in their beauty or whatever it is. But when it's anchored correctly in identity and who they are as a person, who God created them to be, that's when it's not destroyed,
Yeah.
and that's when they're able to grow. Because that honesty, I find when you're able to be honest with yourself and not lie, to say like what your friend said, that's very brave. And people don't even think that's brave, or they don't even understand, like, when you can be honest with yourself and be able to acknowledge, okay, this is where I'm at, you can then make the moves to do it. But your ego would say, hey, lie to yourself, lie and not go there, you know. But he had no ego, and he was able to be like honest with you and say, hey, Jeremiah, this is where I'm at, so let's do this. You know what I'm saying? Which is amazing. Which is amazing. A lot of people don't have that honesty with themselves. They lie about, and it's lies that we think that protect ourselves, but it hurts us. If I lie to myself and say, hey, I had a good childhood, I had good things, because we don't want to, like, what I find even with some of my clients, I had to take them through it. I was like, look, it's okay to be honest. Like I had to tell them on my experience. I had a decent childhood, but I still had things missing.
Yeah.
And to be honest about the things that were missed doesn't make what my parents or what anybody else did to me any less, and did for me any less. But to acknowledge the things that were missing, that dissolves the ego, and then I can actually receive the healing that I need, receive everything. I can be honest. But yeah, to dissolve that, to have the honesty, you can be able to see all those things. So, all right, man, that was great stuff. Like, if I can dissolve the ego, if I can learn the lesson, and if I can fully experience it, I can really heal and really move on, man. So, like I said, I always appreciate you and Amanda, and like I said, what you guys do, man. This is, like I said, life changing.
Thank you
But
for
yeah,
recognizing that. We appreciate you too, because again, it's, you know, my mission is never to, it was never to like be a celebrity, never to be, the most famous person, me. It's not that. It's actually, but I am stepping up, and I am being the lighthouse that I am, powered by God, but also being a beacon of light for other lighthouses to get activated. Because again, it's a team sport, and what I mean by team sport is we need each other as humans, but we also need God equally, and God needs us equally. It's not like, you know, like we're in my experience, we're less than God. We're not more than God. We're not less than God. It's not, but we're not also equal to God, how the mind understands where we can create a universe and do this. But it's more like, to me, best friends, and we're on the same level, even though, of course, we're not the creator, but we can co-create within our lives. But we also, like I said, to me, it's like a kind of it's a trinity, which between me, the other person, and God, if I'm working with that.
yeah,
It's like we need those three factors.
yeah, yeah, man. Like I said, it's amazing. Like you said, that light, and if you're able to help somebody, get their light and express it, and really, like, just more light creates a brighter space, you
Yeah.
know if most people don't understand, like sometimes when you have, of course, a light next to another light, it illuminates more. So more is able to be seen and addressed. And like I said, it's so important to be able to do that. And, you know, that's the greatest value I think even I received from doing this, helping somebody experience it, and just being guided to be able to shine brighter, man. It's so needed, especially with how the world that we live in today. There's, you know, so much fear and there's so much things out there that uh we need we need people of light to be connected to. We need people to be able to see and experience it. And those things, like I said, that's I would tell my people, I was like, my employees or anybody that I would come across, I was like, the most important thing that we have as human beings is our interactions. I was like, what do you remember? I was like, beyond what physically I could give you, it's my interaction with you, and my interaction with you will be a ripple effect for all time. You know, the way that I treat you may affect your grandkids or your children's children. You know what I'm saying? So like, man, the ability to share light, to help give light, to be able to even be an example of it, it's so powerful, man. It's so powerful. So like I said, anybody who does work like this, or who's seeking help or seeking healing, man, I appreciate them so much. Because like the more light you give, the more impactful moments you have. You know, uh,
100%.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I
I
grateful.
appreciate you too. And so before we wrap up here, and before we talk, you share how do people get a hold of you and might want to work with you too as well, because you're one of those people you just talked about. Is let's do like a guided meditation, a prayer here for anybody watching that has to do with around accidents, whether they've been in an accident or they're going through just like kind of where you're at as far as like healing from it, or possibly something in the future. So if you can just kind of hold space with me and ask God to really come, into the room that you're in, that I'm in, that whoever's watching in, and just ask that divine presence to completely surround and go inside of whoever's listening, and know that God is infinite and eternal, meaning God can simultaneously be here in the past and in the future. And it's okay if somebody went through some sort of accident without God, with a lot of fear, pushing God away unconsciously. We can also, in this present moment, ask God to not only surround and come inside of us, fill up every square inch of the room that we're in with his golden light, divine grace, but also every cell of our being. We can also, from that space, ask that presence to multiply and go before whatever incident, whatever accident happened, and surround that part of us, to completely surround, cut any cords, and actually to have God hand in hand as a protective presence go through to before and through the event, and then after the event, clearing, cutting whatever cords, healing whatever needs to be healed for as long as it takes, as many times as it takes, and all the way kind of joining back to now. So connecting that presence now, before, during, and after to now. Also, asking that presence to give us the deeper spiritual lesson, the meaning behind the event in the first place. It came into our life for a particular reason. And so just let that come up just right now, of whatever that is, so that we can learn, receive, and heal, and express gratitude to the teacher itself, all parties involved, for helping us learn this lesson, so that we can live a life as free as possible, as connected as possible, spreading that light, learning our lessons, and fulfilling our life's purpose. So this could happen now, in the past, or potentially in the future, that God can automatically be there. We can even send God into the future, that if and when myself or a loved one or somebody I know I cares about gets into an accident, that you just send God now, multiply now into that time and space that God knows, so that when the time comes, it's going to automatically take over, much like Bryan has been conditioning of that relationship with God, connecting and actually connecting with God before this accident. We can also multiply that skill, that resource, so that you can have that automatically come before, during, and after. So just going to thank that divine presence for completely taking over, guiding this whole podcast, this whole interaction, conversation, and this whole blessing. I'm just going to express gratitude and say thank you for this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this.
Yeah. And so thank you for holding space, helping amplify what we just did. And if somebody wants to connect with you and work with you, how do they reach out to you?
They can reach out through my email, sharing his knowledge. I'm on all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I have my own website, sharinghisknowledge.com. And just reach out to me or message me, and I'll get back to you. Like I said, I can be found on all platforms. Uh, I do sessions, and like I said, I'm grateful for anybody. You know, we'll talk and consult and figure out like just what can I do with you in helping you connect with your true identity and your higher self. You know, and I'm grateful. Like I said, I'm grateful for this opportunity to even talk with you, man. Like, oh man, it's been wonderful.
Perfect. Yep. So sharinghisknowledge.com.
Yeah,
And
sharing.com.
Yep. And we'll put their information too in the bottom of the podcast, and this information too as well. So, Bryan, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your story, for being like a beaming example of how to connect with God, the divine presence, like before, during, and after something like this, and just sharing your story with the world and whoever needs to hear it, and also just being authentic and vulnerable. And I appreciate it very much. And we'll see about having you back on the podcast one day when you're all checking the progression about being healed up and hearing how many people you're helping. So thank you so much. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you again. All right. I'm grateful. All right.
All right.